What's up, everybody? Back again, Red Zone Sports here on a Monday. It is MLB trade deadline week. Man, every fan base either fired up, ready to throw in the towel, ready to sell it all, ready to buy it all. I'm coming at this from a San Francisco Giants perspective. That is my team, no bones about it. I think I've been pretty vocal on the Twitter sphere and figured it was time to make a short little video here and talk through what I think are the three clear and definitive options that the Giants have. There's been no bones about it. They have been god awful since the trade deadline, the All-Star break, which if you would have told me right after acquiring Devers, All-Star break, this team is buyers, no doubt about it. They're still very much in the hunt, but after a complete skid this last week and a half or so, I don't really know what they're going to do. In my opinion, again, there are three really clear routes. And I think, the conversations internally with Buster all the way down right now have to be who are we? Let me just go through the options here. I think there's three very clear ones. Option A, you turn the roster over with the main goal being, let's clear out some of these veterans that are eating up space and taking away at bats, not really providing a whole lot right now, and bring up some of these young guns, right? Like the AAA team for the Giants in the farm system for the first time has 3, 4, 5 guys that I think are ready to contribute. Carson Wisenhunt is going to start tonight. We'll see how that goes. But he's kind of the first one, I think, ready to make an impact, hopefully, for this team. I think option B kind of comes in. Are they going to buy? Are they going to push the chips in? Are they going to make a real run at this? Because, again, they're only a few games out of the wild card right now, and they're really not – I think it's a little bit optimistic to think that they can catch the Dodgers for the division, but it's not out of the question. It's not like the Dodgers are up 17 games or anything like that. It's single digits. This thing is still pretty wide open. So as bad as the Giants have been and feels kind of like Armageddon these last 2 weeks, I wouldn't be shocked to see Buster get aggressive and hit the gas pedal here. And option C, which is what I do not think they will do because of what I just mentioned, them still being very much in the mix, is to be sellers. Now, I think that it's very possible for them to go a little bit like the Tampa Bay route and do a little bit of both. I could see them moving a few pieces off of the big league roster, but I could see them also acquiring a few pieces and kind of just turn things over a little bit, aiming still to be competitive, but shake it up, right? So let's start with option A. I think this is probably the most likely, at least what I would probably look to do. And that is you move someone like Yaz, you move someone like Flores and Dominic Smith. I think all three guys are obviously not superstars. They're not going to be sought after targets necessarily, but you just saw the Yankees go out and acquire Ahmad Rosario. I think all three of these guys are very much veterans that could be depth pieces on a major league team that are contenders. Teams like the Phillies, teams like the Yankees, Toronto, Kansas City's buying. So I do think there's a market. You're not going to get a whole lot in return, obviously, for Yaz, Flores, and Dom Smith. But what it allows you to do is by clearing up those at-bats and that playing time, allows you to call up a guy like Bryce Elbridge. It allows you to call up McCray. Your outfield could potentially be, by making moves like that, Ramos, Lee, and then you have Matos and McCray kind of battling it out, 4 players for 3 spots. I think that's kind of intriguing. I think that's kind of interesting. Yaz just isn't. He's not the guy, man. He hasn't been for a long time. I know that they like to hold on to veterans and good presences in the locker room, and he's got a good glove. But you're going nowhere with him as your right fielder. Let's just be totally honest and frank now. I think you could make a smaller trade for a veteran utility guy if you're going to do that, almost a swap, right? Because Flores right now, the challenge is, yeah, he's still a valuable bat, but he brings you nothing on the defensive side of the ball, and he's not a runner, mediocre power. He's a late inning, off the bench kind of guy, but when you're DHing him, right, it's preventing someone who does have a lot of power. It does prevent, some of these other guys from playing. So, and I think first base is one of those roles where they just have a backlog, first and third. So they got to clear out some of those guys, and allow, again, someone like an Elridge maybe to come up, or maybe you keep one of Dom Smith and Yaz, and you move the other one for, let's say, a middling average second baseman, right? A middle field utility guy. That's what they need. They need someone that can kind of play some of these other spots and, again, open things up. So I think Yaz, Flores, Dom Smith are the three guys with the obvious names that you could see being moved here and opening up some of the playing time for some of these younger guys, allowing them just to be a little bit more dynamic, turning over some of the older guys on the roster that are just eating up at bats, in my opinion. So that's, I think, probably the most likely, or at least going to be part of a combination that they do. If they move to option B, which is Buster says, look, we're 3, 4, 5 games out of the wild card. We're still very much in the hunt here. We didn't go get Rafi Devers, to just sit here and, curl tail and walk home and be like, oh, we had a bad stretch. Like, guess the season's over. I do not see Buster Posey doing that. If they were going to do that, I think we'll get to option C. But option B, there's 5 targets that I think the Giants should really go for. In my opinion. And these are guys that I think one could help in the short term. Obviously this year, they're all guys that are positions of need, in my opinion. And they are potentially a few of these guys long-term solutions like a Rafi Devers was. Option 1, I think you got to call the White Sox. And it's not for Luis Robert. It is for Lennon Sosa and either Edgar Quero or Kyle Teel. Now, Sosa is 26 years old. He's a second baseman. I think it's his 3rd or 4th year in the league. And I think Quero and Teel are both rookie catchers who are having a very good rookie season. But again, they're kind of stuck there. They've been very adamant that they're not going to start both guys at the same time because they get in trouble with late inning swaps and things like that, losing the DH potentially. They've been very upfront that they're not planning to move either guy. So if you have 2 rookie stud catchers, like you would think, you'd move one of them for another position potentially that is of need. So the White Sox, let's be honest, they're not a serious organization. I'm sure every other team in baseball is looking to kind of cherry pick and go get some of their better players. Like, why wouldn't you at this point? They haven't been relevant for, 2 decades almost. So, I think if you're the Giants, again, Sosa solves that second base problem, right? He's 26, hits for a high average, little bit of power, good defensively. Sosa would be my number 1 target. But if you could also flip in a Patrick Bailey into that deal, or maybe, work it out as a 3-team deal, let's say, and go get Sosa and either Quero or Teel, now you've solved potentially your catcher and your second base problem with one swoop of the pen, right? So you go move a Bailey, a Luciano, and let's say 1 or 2 other prospects, make it a 3-team deal or something like that, where Bailey goes to a 3rd team. We send Luciano and another prospect to Chicago, and so on and so forth. But you get your second baseman and catcher for the next 3 to 5 years. I love that move. That would be my favorite trade right now that I could see that's realistic. Next up, I think Trevor Larnach is a guy in Minnesota I'd be calling on. He's a power hitting right fielder. He's only 28 years old. He's from the Bay Area. He could benefit from a change of scenery. He's playing, I would say, mediocre with Minnesota, but who in Minnesota is not playing mediocre? Buxton's the best player on that team when he's healthy. But just go look at them. I think they're 50 and 56. They're kind of right around where the Giants are, maybe a little bit worse. Maybe you can find a win-win deal there where you can get Minnesota, a piece or 2 and maybe a younger guy, an outfielder swap or something like that. Maybe you move Bailey in a deal like that. I don't know. But I think Larnach would fit pretty well here. Right fielder, again, big, lefty hitter. I think Trevor Larnach is a guy that I'd make a call on. The next up, Brett Rooker. A's, I know he's been talked about a lot. I don't think they would part ways with one of their other guys, Soderstrom, Butler, or obviously Kurtz, who seems like the next rock star, at least not yet. The A's obviously want to hit Vegas in a few years with a bang, and I think they want to try to keep that young core intact. But Rooker is a little bit older and doesn't really fit that timeline. The A's are 20 games under 500. You got to try to go get a player or 2 and pick them off that roster. I think Rooker makes a lot of sense. Again, power hitting right fielder. You could put him right in the middle of that order, which is what we desperately need, is a power hitting right-handed hitter to go right behind Devers, kind of smash him in between Adames and Chapman and lengthen out this lineup and replace Yaz. So Rooker would be a dynamic player over Yaz in right field. So you got Rooker. I think number 4 on my list of guys that I think are a little bit under the radar that they should look at the Giants to go and acquire and trade for is Jordan Westburg for the Orioles. I know people have mentioned a lot of guys on the Orioles like Adley Rutschman, which again, I think he's a very fine player. I wouldn't be shocked or, upset if they went and got him, but I would try to get Westberg as well. He's a young player, second baseman. They're not moving Jackson Holiday. So go get their other second baseman. It's the same situation as the White Sox. The trade deadline a lot of times isn't always to push all your chips in and we're going all out. Not everybody's the Yankees. A lot of times teams will use this time to really kind of reshape the roster, what they have. And the Orioles have a few really good second basemen. I think Jordan Westberg, because they're not going to move Holiday, is a guy that I would try to find a win-win trade here. Maybe you can snag O'Hearn while you're at it, or, a pitching arm, but something like that. But I think Westberg is a guy that would fit this team really well at second base. The last one up, I know he's picked up steam in the last few days. He's in town tonight, is O'Neal Cruz. He's young. He's not having a great year, overall in terms of average. But, man, this guy hits for just crazy raw power. Similar to the Devers deal, I think what the Giants need to be doing, in my opinion, is trying to find a way to go and acquire a blue chip guy, an underperforming blue chip talent. I think O'Neal Cruz, if you could get him into the building, that now gives you another potential guy that you can build around over the next 2 to 3 years. I think O'Neal Cruz is a little bit of a product right now of a poor organization in Pittsburgh. I think if you put him, in a stronger roster, a stronger organization around guys like Matt Chapman, Willy Adames, who knows? Like maybe he does kind of catch on fire and turn into a guy that meets his potential. And, all of a sudden, that diamond in the rough is now just a diamond, right? You now just have a bona fide all-star center fielder who hits for power. That's something, again, this team desperately needs. So I think those are the 5 guys that I'd be looking for in terms of bats to acquire for the Giants here as the trade deadline looms. The next option is kind of the nuclear winter, which is Buster looks at the situation and says, look, we're just not this is not our year. We're a year early, 2 years early. We're going to compete still, no doubt about it. But you look at the timeline of where this organization's going, and maybe you consider trading a Logan Webb, or you consider trading Robbie Ray, or Duvall, or some of these guys that, teams like the Yankees are going to be drooling over, or, the Cubs, right? The Cubs are a team that they have 1 year left. I mean, that's a 1 year deal with Kyle Tucker. He could very well be gone this offseason. He's going to have a huge market. I would not be shocked to see the Cubs make a blockbuster move for an arm or two. And you have teams like the Mariners and the Royals who are buying already. So 3 guys, I think if you were to look at kind of hit that red button and blow things up a little bit, would be number 1, Spencer Jones for me. He's the Yankees' 4th overall prospect. He's an outfielder. He's 6'7". He's a lefty. He hits for major power. If the Yankees said, we will trade you right now, Spencer Jones, for Logan Webb, I don't even put the phone down before saying yes. You look at the situation, or, Robbie Ray, let's say it's Ray and Luciano or whatever, or Patrick Bailey. I think if you could get someone like Spencer Jones and pair him for the next 5 to 10 years with a Bryce Eldridge and Rafi Devers and Matt Chapman and Willy Adames and Jung-Hoo Lee and Heliot Ramos, like now you are talking. Like now you are in business. And if Jones and Eldridge can turn out to be who we think they might be, now all of a sudden, you don't get laughed out of the room when you say, you know what, we're going head to head with the Dodgers. We're going head to head with the Phillies. We're going to take on the Yankees in a 7-game series because you've got 3, 4, 5, 6 guys that can absolutely mash. You're in business what baseball has turned into in 2025. So Spencer Jones would be my number 1 target if that's something they're considering, because we know the Yankees feel like that they're going for it here. The next one I mentioned him just a few minutes ago, the Cubs. They've got 2 top outfield prospects in the same mold as Spencer Jones, Kevin Alcantara and Owen Cassie. Both guys are right there on the cusp of being ready to rock and roll and come up. There's just not a whole lot of room in Chicago for them right now with Tucker, PCA, Ian Happ, those guys. So maybe the Cubs again are like, look, we want Duvall and we want Ray, or we want Duvall and we want Webb, and we're going for it. And it's like, all right, this might not be our year, but we can go pluck off 2 of their top 10 prospects or something like that and say, yeah, all right, like this is your year, but this is our for the next 5 years, it's our time. I would be totally fine with that. I really would. This team, I think could still make the playoffs. I think this team could make the wild card and, possibly make some noise, but let's be realistic, man. Like, they cannot hit. So I don't understand what people are saying about, like, we should go all in and, kind of that option A or whatever, where it's like, let's just go for this thing. So I do think this is very much in play here. And I think for the right package, I think Buster's listening. And then the options, or, the third guy that I'd look at for the Mariners, who just made a trade, to go get Naylor at first base. If they're looking for pitching or they're looking for, a few bats or something like that, would be Michael Arroyo. Second baseman. He's 20 years old. He's hitting 280, I think, in AAA now, plus defense, plus speed. Again, the Giants desperately need to find a few guys that are going to fit for the long term, being that Ramos is struggling, Lee is struggling, Chapman is what he is, solid but not great. Adames, kind of same deal. Bailey's a problem. Like, who are the anchors? Who are the blue chip guys? Who are the 2 to 3 guys on your roster that, again, when the Phillies bring in Schwarber and Harper, who's our 2 guys? Devers, I think, is one. I really do long term. I've seen this guy play for his whole career. I think that trade, I would make it over and over and over again, but he can't be the only one. You can't put Devers out there with a bunch of B players and expect all of a sudden things are going to change. So the goal should be, if you're going to make a move like this, can we go get, someone to pair with Devers and hopefully Eldridge for the next 3 to 5 years, go get us 1 or 2 more A-plus blue chip players to make this thing over the next, decade, a real contender. And I think that's what Buster's going to try to do here. So again, I mentioned some of the veteran players I'd look to. I mentioned some of the prospects I'd look to. And if you want to play it overly conservative, option A would be to, again, move some of the, veteran players who've been struggling, but you maybe call up a few guys, go trade for a few veteran utility guys and just kind of shake it up, but you're not making any splash. You're not really advancing the ball downfield. Those are kind of the 3 options I think they're weighing. I'd be okay with all 3, but at the end of the day, they got to do something because, going entire series 0 for 23 with runners in scoring position against teams like the Mets are just completely disheartening. And this season's going to fade much faster than people wanted it to, just a few weeks ago, if they just hold firm. So that's my thoughts on the Giants. I think what they'll do, what I hope they do, those are some of the names that I'm eyeing and I'm hoping for. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like if you haven't already. And that's all I got.